Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we have another devblog for another vehicle which is going to be coming out in this new Strategist event, some form of crafting event, which we'll probably hear a little bit more about in the next few days. This is the Lübeck frigate, and it is part of the Kern class of frigates which were built in the 1960s. We already have a very similar game, very similar ship in the game. There is only slight differences between us, but as usual when it comes to these events, it is nice with the fact that the ship community is recognized. It was really cool when the H-34, the helicopter, was an event vehicle, and also at the same time it's always cool to see the naval vehicles which are going to be the event ones. So what is special about the Lübeck? Well, starting off with some of its history, it's one of the sixth Kern class frigates, which was constructed by the one and only Blohm & Voss company, and represented one of the first warships built for the German Navy in the years following World War II. The Lübeck and her sister ships were designed to counter enemy escort ships as well as submarines, and were well equipped to perform these tasks. And the Lübeck was commissioned in June of 1963. It was the fifth of the Kern class frigates to enter service, and the ship continued service until December of 1988, and then it was decommissioned and sold to Turkey for scrapping. The other thing about this machine, with Blohm & Voss, some of you guys might remember Blohm & Voss from the weird and wonderful designs when it came to them in World War II. But Blohm & Voss primarily were shipbuilders, and before World War II and then after World War II, that's what they primarily did. I think it was probably a good business move to go back to shipbuilding instead of weird and wacky plane designs, especially since they didn't get too many which were successful. Another thing that I found interesting about this machine, so if you didn't know, there was a few things added to the files maybe half a week to a week ago, which talked about this machine, therefore we kind of knew it was already coming. But the interesting thing is, when we were on stream and when we were looking at this vehicle, I had a look at the Wikipedia, because that's normally the first thing that came up, and this is the Wikipedia on it. Unfortunately, it's cut off a little bit on my screen, but it's funny because the Wikipedia says sold to Turkey for cannibalization, which I thought was quite just a hilarious way of describing this thing. So yeah, it's another one of those machines which was sold straight to Turkey after being used for so many years as the Germans. So the Lübeck has a very similar armament to the other ships that we talked about. It has access to two 100mm guns. It has access to two twin 40mm Breda Mod 58s, and then two 40mm Bofors Mod 58 AA guns as well. So two dual ones and then two singles. And then, of course, four 553mm torpedo tubes and two quad rocket launchers. Hopefully it does get access to these rocket launchers. It doesn't talk about them too much in the devblog, but if you have a look here, this seems to be where the rocket launchers are. The other thing is, since this is going to be one of the prizes for the next event, the Strategist event, and it's a rank 2 ship, normally when we have a look at ships, rank 3, 4, and 5 are normally seen as the higher tier ships, and since this one is a premium vehicle as well, so you'll get all of the modifications for free, this I think is seen as one of the low-ranking event vehicles for Strategist. So now we have one high ranking one, because if you didn't know, the Berezniak, that thing is actually a rank 5 event vehicle. We have the rank 1 premium vehicle, the 251, and then we have this, the rank 2 premium for the Germans. Now there's the fourth one, which obviously we don't know. Every one of these events has had 4 vehicles for it in the past, apart from the very early events, such as the April Fool's one. And therefore, when it comes to the Kern class, being that third, it only leaves space for one high-tier vehicle. And, you know, some have speculated, including myself, that it's going to be a Merkava. Maybe we find out today, maybe we find out tomorrow, if that is true. So, yeah, it's kind of nice to see, I suppose, having another ship available for an event like this. And the fact is, these machines have great mobility, and at the same time, they generally sit at a BR, which they can be useful because of the rapid fire of their 100mm. My guess is this thing will be exactly the same BR as its predecessor, you know, the one that we already have in the game. The only real difference between it is, of course, you know, the premium bonus that this thing is going to have, and also it has 4 torpedo launchers instead of 2. So you get 4 torpedoes instead of just the 2. I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference because you can see how they're mounted on the machine. So you only have 2 per side anyway. So it's going to be really hard to launch them all as, you know, they're 4 tubes. The other thing is, machines like this normally get a spawn which is away from the smaller boats, which is definitely something they require because of those 100mm. If you were ever around in the time when the K2, the cannon boost, was very powerful, it was basically because they'd added hull brake to the K2, and it was at a BR where it faced a lot of PT boats, and it also got a PT boat spawn or a Basel boat spawn. So it would just sit there and just donk on fools. Because these guns are such good fire rate on the Kern, it would be able to do the same thing. So putting this thing out to sea, I think, is completely fine. Another aspect to this machine, which makes it slightly different from some of the other machines you'll see, it has really no armor on it. This isn't an armored machine at all, and also the torpedoes are not going to be great. They're not going to be something which you see against you know, a bunch of other machines. And one thing that's really nice about naval is some nations have really good torpedoes, some nations have really bad torpedoes, and it's all about picking the playstyle that works around your weapon. If you're playing Japan, it's okay to sit 15 kilometers away from your target and just spam torpedoes. If you're playing America, you know, you have pretty good, decent range torpedoes. If you're playing somebody like, let's see, the Soviets, that's not really the case. And with this machine here, it's going to be similar. It's not going to be the case that you can use those torpedoes that effectively against machines. The other thing as well about this machine is hopefully this will get more people into naval, at least from a rank 1, 2, and 3 perspective. Rank 2 and rank 1 of naval are incredibly fun. I think generally they are great experiences, just running around, you know, shooting people and just not really thinking about it, just kind of turning off the brain. And I'm hoping that with more of these event vehicles, they seem to have stocked them full when it comes to this, when it comes to naval in general. You know, you got the Leningrad, you got the Udachi, you got a few others which are really good, and this one's no different. Technically, this one is just a better version of the one in the tech tree, even though it's really not that much of a different of a version, but it is still technically better because of the torpedo tubes. There you go. You can see the rocket launcher there, the dual 40s, and of course the 100mm gun. But hopefully this will get some people interested in this crafting event. I really, really hope this is going to be an event where you are able to get everything in it. You know, you're able to get all 4 vehicles on offer. Because if it isn't the case, I'm worried that something like the Lübeck is really going to be left out, you know, in the sun. The same with stuff like the 251. And the Berezniak, if they make it so you can't get everything and you are limited in your options, it just means that less people get to see this wonderful machine, less people get to play it, and less people get to, you know, enjoy stuff like naval. And I feel like when it comes to naval, It should definitely be said that, you know, people should be encouraged to play it through these events. That's how I play the majority of my naval nowadays. I play it, you know, when these challenge events come around or when these Build-A-Bear events come around. And the reason is because it's just good to kind of turn off the brain and play and get the vehicles and give them a go. And it was nice to see stuff like the Maxim Gorky for that reason. Hopefully the Lübeck frigate is something similar to this. Otherwise, it's going to be something which I feel like is going to disappear, like the Grey Goose did, if anybody remembers that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Trigger Hippie, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Hans, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.